Hi there, this is Doug, the guy who knows Eclipse, and today we're going to talk about a not quite Eclipse subject. And this is redo because I was taking too long on the first one. Anyway, today's subject is networking. Everything that I say here, this is just my experiences. Just, take it for food for thought. If you have to do some network rebuilding on your end, it couldn't hurt to know my experience. Anyway, so let's get started. Now, Eclipse can be set up in a variety of flavors. For many years, I had, a standard setup where we had a main branch. I had a server in my server room at the main branch that I maintained and did the backups and everything right there. A lot of customers are still doing that. In the modern world, though, um, a lot of people have switched to cloud hosting because, well, backups are a lot easier. It's more fail-safe. It's easier to make connections to a cloud service and maintain it that way. It's a little harder to configure, and for those of us that are a little paranoid, you feel like you've lost a little bit of control. But everything is kind of switched into cloud services. Um, the system that I currently deal with is a cloud-hosted service, and Epicor back in 2017 was partnering with a cloud service provider, which they've rebranded. And so they basically configured and did everything on your end, and then just gave you the VPN information, or you bought from them a VPN router that connected your branch to your cloud instance of Eclipse. One way or the other, no matter what configuration you have, more than likely you have either satellite branches that are doing VPN connections to your main branch to access Eclipse, or you've got mobile users that are using a VPN software client that are accessing your main branch to get to Eclipse, or you're using a cloud-hosted service either by Epicor or um, Google or Amazon or Microsoft or something else, and you're doing a VPN connection from your branch to Eclipse or from a PC client to Eclipse. You can't get away from VPNs, and this is necessary because the base Eclipse has basically fuck all for any type of security. You cannot put an Eclipse server directly on the internet because it would be hacked immediately because it's got no protections. So it can't create encrypted tunnels like you're used to seeing in any modern software these days. So you got to have VPN connections to be able to protect your system from outside hackers. Anyway, so the first thing I'll say is PC clients. A lot of people use the Cisco VPN client on their PC. I hate that piece of software. Not to mention you have to, I think, now pay annual license to Cisco at a unbelievably expensive price. I've always found that software to be very aggravating to work with. So if I have to do a PC VPN software, I use ShrewSoft. I've used it for 12 years now, I think. It's a little outdated, but I've never found anything better, and it's always been very, very reliable. They have a free version and a pay version for $50, and it's a one-time charge, and much, much better than the Cisco thing. Anyway, um, more than likely, you're running a network that's probably using Cisco equipment because that's the recommended and only supported by Epicor, and they pretty much shove it down your throat. But you're probably using equipment that quit being supported by Cisco 7 to 10 years ago. You're probably using a 1600 series or 1800 series routers. Those things are ancient. They're very, very reliable, but they're also apparently very hackable. And they will die on you just when you don't want them to. Not to mention they're a pain in the ass to work with because they're so ancient. Um, so if you're at a point where you need to set up a new branch or you're needing to rebuild the network on an existing branch, then you're looking at having to buy new equipment, and you're of course going to want to. The first thing you're going to think of is go to Cisco again. Um, and in my experience, since I've, been a do-it-yourself, I wouldn't call me a hacker. I'm more of a backyard mechanic of IT. And there was never enough money in the budget to go spend the eight or $12,000 for the, recommended Cisco router and do it properly. So I always had to make do with whatever else I could cobble together. This was back in the days when we had our own server in our own server room. And I got pretty good at configuring open source routers or using something called pfSense, and that worked pretty damn well for a lot of years. Of course, that's not quite supported by Eclipse, but Anyway, so if you're having the conversation with Eclipse, now they're going to steer you towards this model router for pretty much any office of 50 or less people. The Cisco 1111, either -4P or 8P, or some variant of that thing. And when we went to set up the new branches in my current employer, since this was the recommended hardware from Epicor and the only one that they said they would support, that was what I bought. But they wanted a small fortune to buy it from them and configure it. And I went, oh, hey, I've been in IT for 39 years now, and I was a Cisco certified network associate, and I've worked with Cisco routers before. I don't like it, but I should be able to muddle my way through it, right? So I went and bought a refurb unit for 650 bucks, a certified refurb, and tried to configure it from there. Nightmare. Cisco is not the Cisco I used to remember. This device was a nightmare to configure. The documentation is almost non-existent. What is existent is misleading. It runs a version of their operating system that is a subset. A lot of standard commands you're used to with older Cisco routers just flat don't exist on this thing. And long story short, I spent, I think, 7 hours just trying to configure this thing just to be able to access the web interface to do the rest of the configuration. Back to the old, using terminal software, PuTTY, and having to connect to the serial port on this damn thing and entering in enable and global commands and all that good shit. And you come to find out by default, the thing comes out of the box with everything disabled. And you will spend hours trying to find that right combination of things to just enable enough just to get the web configuration administrator and do the rest of it. I managed to get it that far and couldn't go any further and had to hire, this is embarrassing considering my career, and I used to build routers. I had to hire a Cisco certified network engineer at $250, $275 an hour to finish the configuration for me. I already had it installed. I already had it connected to the internet and passing traffic. What I needed was, passing ports, configuring the Wi-Fi, and setting up the VPN connection to Epicor's cloud-hosted services. Now, I've done this kind of thing before, several years ago, and I figured, tops, I'm going to pay 3-4 hours labor on this thing, but it'll be done by the professional, it'll be done right, and then I don't have to think about it ever again. Long story short, took on and off 4 months, 15 billable hours. I paid more for the labor than I did for the damn device. During that time, the engineer convinced me that I needed to buy additional security licenses to unlock features on the router that I needed for the VPN tunnel, and additional user licenses and high-speed bandwidth unlock. Cisco's new model is they sell you basically a foot warmer. And then you got to buy all kinds of support agreements and licenses to unlock the features that should be base features on this router. Anyway, so yeah, I spent $650 for the router. I think I spent $1,500 on licenses and support. Every time he logged in to configure something, I got used to hearing, well, that's odd, because none of the commands that he was used to entering in worked at all because they weren't there. And then he'd have me put in a case with Cisco support. And then now they're doing India tech support now too. So they'd send me a screen capture or a copy of a page from a configuration, from a manual on a model router I didn't have and didn't apply to, and a version of the operating system that I didn't have, and it didn't work, and it was a nightmare. And long story short, I spent, I think, 2,800 dollars in total on the box, um, and $2,800 on engineering support. I ended up cracking the code on most of this stuff. He'd get 10 minutes into something, go, I don't know, go call Cisco. Then I'd spend 6 hours online trying configurations until I could get past the blockage that he had gotten to, then call him up, then schedule another time. Then he'd get another 5 minutes and hit another doorstop and rinse and repeat. So I think I spent more time training him than he did spent configuring the router. So um, long story short, avoid this model router like the plague. Even if you do buy it from Epicor, and they're going to charge you dearly for that, keep in mind they're going to configure it. They're going to send it to you pre-configured. Hope to God that they got the configuration right before they send it to you, because mistakes do happen. They're going to have their own admin password in. You're going to be blocked out of it. You can't even see in your router. You can't monitor it. You can't see any of the statistics. You can't modify it at all. You're going to have to go to them to make any change. Hope that they do it right. And yeah, having a third party to have to go through just to do basic changes and maintenance on the core piece of your network, not a fan. Not a fan. After I went through that very expensive, very painful experience, and even after all that, a lot of this was to make the wireless access points work in our warehouse. We were trying to prep this for wireless warehouse, and I needed good Wi-Fi coverage, so I needed a Cisco mesh that could hand over the signal as it got weak from place to place in the warehouse. And so this box had a built-in controller and wireless access point with the latest Cisco mesh software. So, that was a lot of the reason for getting this router. That was the one part that didn't work the worst. It was nearly impossible to configure, and when we did get it to configure, the access points were garbage, just garbage. Um, I hope to God I never have to touch a Cisco equipment again. If I do, it's going to be with a sledgehammer. Anyway, what did I do? After going through all this, I was forced to. I can't run a network long term with a device like this that's unstable and a Wi-Fi network I can't rely on. So I was going to go back to an old favorite that I used years ago, PF Sense. I had good luck with those routers. And I knew it could handle the IPsec tunnel configuration to Eclipse. But while I was poking around, I found that times have changed, and there's a new kid on the block, an old company I've known for a lot of years that used to make low-end equipment, and they solved my problem pretty well. So what I ended up settling on was TP-Link. And they make this wonderful, there's a couple of models that I've played with, this ER7212PC and this 7206. Once again, if you've got a network of 100 simultaneous users, you might want to bump up to the next model. They do make a couple more powerful models than these ones. These two models here are just really for a network of 50 PCs or less. So a branch office or a small main. But it depends on how much traffic you're passing, really. As I said there, TP-Link does make models of this that can handle much larger networks. You can still buy their equipment. These things are incredibly affordable, and this is what kind of broke me initially into not seriously considering it because they were so cheap. I just spent the $2,500 for the Cisco thing and got crap. And I'm looking at this thing going, $139? This thing can't possibly work. Well, long story short, they work brilliantly. They are some of the best configured, reliable hardware. The fit and finish is truly amazing. It is one hell of a value for what it is. And I wish I had come across this before I had to deal with the Epicor, but I made the mistake of listening to Epicor and believing what they said. Mistake. Anyway, so The neat thing about these is, as I said, they'll handle the standard IPsec connections that you need for Epicor support and access to cloud-hosted services. It handles some good bandwidth. They're very easy to configure. No console, no command line. Everything works pretty good. TP-Link makes a whole series of equipment under the moniker OMADA, and this has got a cloud-based universal controller system to it. So you can build out your network, and no matter how many sites you can have a central website that you can go to and monitor all of your network and reconfigure devices remotely. It works brilliantly well, and it's really inexpensive. Anyway, this model here, this is the base model. I bought one. I bought the first one of these, configured it, and blew my socks off that it actually worked. It worked much better and seemed to be even faster than the Cisco router, which was amazing. And then I went to some other more advanced models. So you can just buy this unit and just configure it as a standard router. And if you have only one wireless access point connected to it, that works just fine. But really, the strength comes in is when you add the OMADA controller to your network. If you This particular model supports OMADA, but it doesn't have the OMADA controller in it. That's an additional device. And the controller device is $94. You plug it into your network, and then you give it access to all the OMADA TP-Link devices on your network, and it maintains and monitors the configuration for you. This other model here has got an 8-port PoE switch built into it and the OMADA controller built into it for just $100 more. It's a little bit limited on memory, and I wouldn't use this on a big network. But if you got if you got a small branch of a little less than 50 people, probably 20, 30, ideally, and just 2 or 3 wireless access points and a network switch or two, this device is beautiful. Everything you need in one box, and of course it's got a couple of SPP expansion ports in here for fiber, add a couple more ports for uplink, downlink if you want to add some more TP-Link switches, etc., etc. And very nice, as I said, this one has the OMADA controller in it, and this one does not. And you can configure this without OMADA, but you don't get all the benefits of the cloud access and remote monitoring, all that good stuff. So for the extra $94. Now, if you have a bigger network, you want the separate OMADA controller normally because it can handle, as it says up here, up to 100 devices or up to 500 devices if you get the 200 ones. If you got a really big network, you don't want the embedded OMADA controller, you want the separate one. Okay. Now, if there's one thing that I have to ding TP-Link on is that they don't do a whole lot for manuals, but luckily this device is pretty easy to work with, so it's not too hard to figure out. Keep in mind that you're going to want to have an active internet connection and a PC that's on an active internet connection, because at some point you're going to want to create a TP-Link ID and you're going to have to access the internet to do that without going through the router that you're trying to set up. So, a perfect world. And of course, if you got a cell phone, turn on the Wi-Fi hotspot, connect your PC to the Wi-Fi hotspot, and also to the router that you're trying to configure, so that you have access to software downloads and to create the ID when you need to. So keep that in mind. All right. The manual that comes in the box is going to show you the default IP address to go to, and you'll log into the OMADA controller and go from there. Um, the interface is, poke around with it a little bit. It's going to be a little confusing initially, but you get the hang of it pretty quick. It's the type of experience you would expect from modern equipment, unlike what you get from Cisco, which is shit that you would have expected from 30 years ago. Um, eh, you want to do a configuration and then do the software updates after you do the configuration, unless you've got a really outdated device. So ignore that. Um, it gives you a nice dashboard view of what you have going on your network here. And as I said, since this unit here, this is the 7212, it has the embedded OMADA controller, so it allows you to pull in and configure all of your TP-Link OMADA devices on your network in a central location. Boy, that saves a lot of trouble. It's nice to have just one dashboard and you can configure everything there, and the OMADA will maintain the configuration for you, and you can even do backups of the configuration. Um, so all the modern stuff you'd expect. You've got your statistics, so you can monitor your network. Um, the mapping I don't find particularly helpful, but it does have that. It will give you the listing of devices. This is so I said, with the TP-Link devices, they can be configured independently, or they can be configured under OMADA, and OMADA maintains the configuration. Keep in mind, if you're adding a new device, you already have OMADA in there, what you want to do is you want to put the device on the network, adopt it into OMADA, and then do the configuration there, and OMADA will update the configuration. If you do it the other way around, which is put the device on the network, configure it, and then try and do it in OMADA, OMADA will wipe the configuration you did, and you'll have to do it all over again. Something I learned the hard way, so keep that in mind. As soon as as soon as a TP-Link OMADA device is adopted by your OMADA controller, it will wipe the configuration that's on board and put the configuration that you put in at the OMADA, and more than likely, since the device didn't exist, you didn't have a configuration yet. You can't pre-configure devices in most cases, so it's going to wipe everything all over again. So don't do that. I banged my head on the floor a couple of times on that. Gives you information on clients, insights. I've never found particularly useful in all that. Under the settings here, this is where the magic happens, and you can put all your site configuration stuff and your device accounts, and the big thing here is VPN, and it handles a wide variety of VPNs and encryptions, and I think it can handle up to 50 tunnels. So everything you would need, as I said, the standard IPsec, which is what Epicor is using, or in what you probably use in most cases to cloud hosts like Microsoft Azure or something like that. Setting up site-to-site VPNs to link your satellites to your main office, all doable from there. Very easy to set up. A lot of options to deal with. And of course, you can also create a mobile VPN policy for people using ShrewSoft on their PC to jump into your network and run Eclipse. So, nice set of features. As I said, you can set up your wireless network configuration, install your access points. Keep in mind, if you are not running OMADA, you can only have one wireless access point. You can't mesh them together. I mean, you can have several access points, but they won't work in coordination with each other. As soon as you add the OMADA controller, now you can have several access points, and they'll operate as a mesh and transfer to whichever one has the best signal as things move around in your warehouse. So worth the price to get the OMADA controller and all that good stuff. So very, very decent, robust set of tools and configurations, and very nice user interface. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail on how to configure one of these things, because, I mean, every network is going to have a different configuration. For $139 or $250, buy one of the damn things, play with it. You'll have to fiddle with it to see what configuration works best in your particular scenario. considering the cost of the darn thing, though, go play. As I said, if there's one thing that kind of annoys me a little bit is that there's not a lot of manuals or information online on this particular router, which is a shame because it's actually very, very good. All right, now the part that I am most impressed with is something that comes free with the OMADA routers, and that is the OMADA Cloud Access Service. So as soon as you turn on the OMADA and you create your TP-Link ID, and the routers are linked to your TP-Link ID. You do that when you configure them initially, so that's why you have to have that internet access to be able to create the TP-Link ID before you could configure the router, or else you'll get stuck in a death loop of things you can't do. All right, so here we are in the cloud portal that TP-Link provides. And here I've got one network that I have currently joined into my OMADA cloud. This is pretty cool. If someone at that branch says, "Hey, we got problems with the network," all I got is log in the cloud, and it tells me, okay, it's in communication with the router. So whatever problems they've got, it isn't specifically an internet connection, because at least I can get to it. If you go in here and do launch, it goes and passes you through to the OMADA controller on that network. And now you can do all kinds of looking at the statistics, alter the configurations, do some ping tests, all that good stuff from wherever you're at, which is the type of stuff that you'd expect nowadays. It gives you some very nice information on what the hell's going on your network. And as I said, this is free. It comes with the router, and this is a set of services that if you tried to, even a Cisco does provide this, it's not as clean, it's not as simple, and it's ungodly expensive. So, so this is a lot nicer. Now, of course, you can add multiple sites. You can group the devices into particular sites. This is the site that I'm dealing with here. And it does take a little bit to make the connection, but nothing exorbitantly. And here you can do software updates, and I can check all my OMADA devices that are on that network. And as I said, it shows me the version software, what needs to be what's online, what's offline. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And for this price point, I don't see how in the hell you could beat it. So, I'm not going to beat a dead horse there, but takeaway, I'd be highly suspicious of Cisco C1111 router equipment. My experience was a nightmare. Please do not do the same. If you do decide that you absolutely have to buy that equipment, I warned you. Anyway, there are alternatives. There are very inexpensive alternatives that work really, really, really well, and you might want to consider those instead. Anyway, this is a bit long, but it's a complicated subject. So thank you for your time and attention, and have a wonderful day.